I remember the day Earth stopped pretending we were safe, the day the sky burned red with ships that didn't belong to us. It started at dawn over Nairobi as faint streaks of light, like meteors cutting the upper atmosphere. I was drinking bitter coffee from a paper cup at the transport hub, watching them with detached curiosity. Then came the thunder, sonic booms rolling across the savannah, shaking windows and making car alarms scream. Everyone thought it was a meteor shower at first. Some even filmed it on their phones. The news feeds corrected us within minutes. Unidentified orbital incursion detected. 10 minutes later, Global Defense Forces on alert. 10 minutes after that, invasion. I was a logistics officer for a military that no longer existed by sunset. Our fleets were shredded in orbit before they could even maneuver. Our satellites went blind as white noise filled every channel. Every unit I'd trained with was swallowed by the storm before the chain of command could even issue coherent orders. The invaders called themselves the Draw Collective. Their ships looked like broken shards of obsidian, bristling with weapons that outclassed everything we had by generations. They weren't here to negotiate. They weren't here to enslave. They were here to erase us. I was in the middle of boarding a ground transport when the first wave hit. The ground trembled with a deep, gut-level vibration as drop pods ripped through the upper atmosphere like spears. They hit the earth hard enough to punch through pavement and soil as if it were paper, unfolding into armored petals that vomited out soldiers. 7-foot insectoid predators with armor fused to their chitin and plasma rifles welded to their forearms. Their movements were impossibly fast, mechanical in their precision. Screaming civilians flooded the terminal. Kenyan soldiers rushed to form perimeter. It didn't matter. Plasma fire cut them down in seconds. The air smelled of ozone and burning flesh. The walls shook. I didn't stay to fight. There was no fight to be had. I ran, through shattered glass doors, across cracked pavement, into the chaos outside. Not heroics, not strategy, just raw, animal survival. By nightfall, I had made it to the Rift Valley in a stolen truck, riding with a convoy of refugees. The city burned behind us, a pillar of fire visible even from miles away. I sat in the back, staring at the smoke, unable to breathe properly. Every radio frequency was silent or screaming static. The world's armies were gone. No fleet, no command structure, no orders, just confusion and terror spreading like a virus. The Draw weren't just bombing us. They were hunting us, methodically sweeping through cities to make sure no one got out alive. That night, I sat on the edge of a dried riverbed and watched the stars disappear behind black alien ships. My hands shook. My uniform was useless now, just a symbol of a war already lost. And yet, some part of me refused to give up. I didn't know why. Maybe it was habit. Maybe it was sheer human stubbornness. No army. No hope. Just humans. But I wasn't ready to die. Not yet. Weeks passed after the sky fell. The cities turned to graveyards first. Silent. Smoldering carcasses picked clean by alien patrols. Then the highways became hunting grounds. Anyone who tried to move openly was cut down by drones before they made it 10 kilometers. Even the air felt hostile. The Draw didn't just bomb us and move on. They hunted survivors. Their technology sniffed out energy emissions and heat signatures, forcing us to abandon every convenience. No vehicles unless they were stripped of electronics. No radios. No lights at night. Even cooking a meal risked attracting a drone. I drifted south with whoever I could find. An old farmer named Hassan who refused to leave his land. 2 frightened teenagers scavenging food. A former medic who carried more scars than supplies. We moved through the wilds, avoided roads, scavenged from empty villages. We learned to live like rats, hiding under rubble and eating cold beans straight from the can. And yet the Draw still found us sometimes. One night, while sheltering in the ruins of Addis Ababa, we heard the deep, insectal thrum of a hunter patrol. Their boots clicked against cracked pavement, their mandibles snapping as they scanned with shoulder-mounted sensors. We froze under the floorboards of an abandoned apartment. I could hear Hassan's heart hammering louder than my own. But then, something unexpected happened. The patrol never made it to our hiding place. A muffled blast echoed through the street outside, small, precise, controlled. We heard a hiss of alien voices, then the sharp crack of suppressed gunfire. Silence followed. A shadow slipped through the doorway minutes later, holding a weapon I'd never seen before. A human weapon. Its owner was a wiry woman with close-cropped black hair and eyes that had seen too much. "You're coming with us," she whispered. That was how I met Lien Torres, leader of a resistance cell called the Ghosts. They weren't soldiers. They weren't even trying to be. They were scavengers, saboteurs, and hackers. And they weren't just surviving, they were fighting back. The Ghosts didn't carry rifles. They carried knowledge. They knew how to repurpose alien wreckage, how to hack abandoned drones, how to move without leaving heat traces. They made bombs out of fertilizer and fuses out of copper, wiring stripped from gutted homes. We don't fight their war. Lien told me that first night, as we hid in the basement of a collapsed office block. She was working on some kind of shaped charge, her hand steady even in the flickering light of a single candle stub. We fight ours. The war of inconvenience. Every draw patrol delayed, every supply line disrupted, every little thorn in their foot. They think humanity is broken, will make them limp. I stared at her, exhausted, still wearing the ragged uniform of an army that no longer existed. You think this matters? They wiped out every major defense force in a day. It matters because we're still here, she said, not looking up from her work. If even one of us survives, they lose. Her words hit me harder than I expected. I'd been clinging to survival for its own sake, but here was someone with a purpose, someone still willing to make the invaders bleed. That night, I joined them. Over the next few weeks, I learned what it meant to be a ghost. We never stayed in one place more than 2 nights. We carried no electronics that could give away our position. We scavenged alien weapons, but never used them carelessly. Their energy signatures could draw patrols from kilometers away. We struck fast, struck quiet, and vanished before the enemy could respond. Our first mission together was simple, an ambush on a draw supply convoy moving through a dried riverbed. We'd learned their routes from watching for days, memorizing patrol patterns. When the time came, we planted improvised explosives under loose rock and waited in silence. The convoy never knew what hit it. The explosion ripped their armored crawler apart. Lien and 2 others rushed in to grab supplies, while I covered them with an old hunting rifle. The aliens responded fast, faster than I expected. But we were already gone, melting into the hills before their drones even finished scanning. That night, we shared food and water in an abandoned rail tunnel. Lien passed out ration bars like they were gold. "One thorn," she said, smiling faintly. "Tomorrow we'll plan another." But not every mission went that smoothly. A week later, we tried to sabotage a draw communications relay. It was a half-buried structure near the outskirts of Lake Tana, guarded by insectoid sentries. Our plan was to overload its power couplings and fry its circuitry. Things went wrong fast. The guard rotation changed unexpectedly. One of our own slipped on loose gravel. The aliens' mandibles snapped an alarm, and their rifles lit the night. Plasma bolts tore through the air, burning holes in the walls around us. We barely escaped with our lives, leaving behind the charge we'd worked so hard to build. I can still hear the screams of Marlowe, the youngest of our crew, as he fell behind in the darkness. That night, we didn't speak around the fire. Not a word. But the very next morning, Lien was already sketching plans for the next operation. "We hit them again," she said flatly. Harder, louder. Something about her unshakable lit something inside me. I had spent so long just trying to survive, waiting for someone else to save us. There would be no rescue fleet, no cavalry coming over the horizon. It was just us. Just humans. And maybe, just maybe, that was enough. The first thing you hear after death isn't silence. It's memory. I woke in the dark, hearing every scream, every broken radio call, every plea I couldn't answer. At first, I thought it was hell. Later, I realized it was something worse. Earth had called me back. When I opened my eyes, I was in the ruined trench of my last stand. I was in a cold, seamless corridor that hummed with quiet power. Lights pulsed like a heartbeat in the walls. My body felt wrong, too strong, too light, too unyielding. My hands weren't hands anymore. "Welcome back, Captain Vance," a voice said, smooth and calm. I spun around, my boots barely touching the floor. A figure stepped out of the wall, literally out of the wall, like mist-forming bones. Human-shaped, but shimmering like liquid glass. "You're alive. Technically. Where am I?" My voice sounded like it came from inside a metal chamber. Inside the continuum. Humanity's last sanctuary. I try to remember. The invasion. The fall of Europe. My unit dead around me. A plasma lance tearing through my chest. Then nothing. I was dead. "You were," the figure said. "We retrieve what was left of you. Your mind. Your memories. Enough to make a soldier again." I touched my chest. No heartbeat. No rise and fall of breath. Just an armored shell that felt like my own skin. Why? Because humanity isn't gone. Not yet. But to win this war, we need soldiers who don't stay dead. That was when the doors opened, revealing an endless hangar. 100 others stood there. Men, women, even a few I recognized. All in bodies like mine, forged from some alloy I didn't know, glowing faintly with blue veins of energy. "Ghosts of Earth. Project Revenant," the figure said. "The aliens think they've won. They haven't met you." Training was strange. My muscles didn't tire, but my mind did. We learned to move faster than human reflexes should allow, to fight without fear of injury, to repair our own bodies if damaged. But what haunted me wasn't what I could do now. It was what I couldn't feel. Food tasted like dust. Music was just data. I could process the notes perfectly, but they didn't stir anything in me. And at night, when the others powered down, I wandered the silent halls and wondered if I was really me, or just a recording wearing my face. That changed during our first deployment. They dropped us into orbit over Kepler, 92F, one of the first colony worlds to fall. Alien patrol ships hung above the ruins, scanning for survivors. Command's voice buzzed in our heads, cold and precise. Destroy them all. No survivors. When the drop bay opened, I stepped into the void. No parachutes, no air, no fear. We fell like meteors. The first alien ship didn't even see us coming. I hit its hull at Mach 2, punched straight through, and tore its core apart from the inside. For a second, the old thrill surged through me. Not pride, not joy, but something raw, something human. The others were just as brutal. We weren't soldiers anymore. We were weapons. When the last enemy ship burned, I stood on the cracked surface of Kepler, 92F, and looked at the ruins of human cities. Streets where kids once played now covered in ash. Glass towers reduced to jagged teeth. And for the first time since waking up, I felt something grief. One of my squad mates, Diaz, stood beside me. Her metal face didn't show it, but I could hear the tightness in her voice. We died to protect these places, and they still fell. Then we make them pay. I said, "That's not enough," she whispered. "We have to win, even if we're not human anymore." Back aboard the Continuum fleet, Command briefed us on our next target, an alien foundry world deep in hostile space. But as I studied the holographic maps, I realized something. Command wasn't just sending us to fight. They were sending us to die, again and again, until Earth's enemies learned to fear death itself. And I wasn't sure if that was justice or vengeance wearing humanity's mask. The voice of the figure who brought me back echoed in my mind. Humanity isn't gone. Not yet. But to win, we need soldiers who don't stay dead. I clenched my steel fists. If I had to be a ghost to finish this war, so be it. But when it was over, I wanted answers. Why Earth had this technology. Why they waited until every soldier was slaughtered before using it. And most of all, I wanted to know if Captain Vance was still in here somewhere, or if he died on that battlefield, and I was just his shadow. Because if I was just a shadow, then the galaxy had no idea how dark humanity's wrath could really get. They said Earth was quiet now. I wish they were right. I stood on the cracked tarmac of what used to be Wright-Patterson Air Force Base. The wind pushed dust into my lungs, and I could almost hear the voices of pilots who'd once run across these runways. But it wasn't just memory. The ground still hummed. Machines slept beneath us, buried in reinforced silos, waiting for the call that never came. Except the call did come. Just not for the living. Captain, I heard through the comm my squad leader, Ramirez. He was still technically human, but barely. His armor made him taller, heavier, stronger. Not an upgrade he volunteered for. None of US did. Recon says we're not alone here. I tightened my grip on my rifle. Hostiles? Not sure, Ramirez said. Movement. Big movement. Whatever's down there is waking up. I glanced at the horizon. A storm was building, unnatural, metallic, wrong. It wasn't just weather. It was a residue of alien atmospheric processors, still running on automated protocols long after their masters thought the planet was dead. They left their trash behind, Ramirez muttered, scanning the ruins. Guess we'll have to clean it up. Before I could respond, the ground beneath us shifted, not like an earthquake, but like something pushing up from below. The concrete runway split open in jagged lines. From the fissure, heat and light burst upward, followed by steel. An orbital drop drone. Human design. But this one was old, older than the war. How is it still active? Its shell glowed red from internal reactors, and its voice, distorted but recognizable, boomed. Human combat asset. Status. Unconfirmed. Executing last order. Defend Earth. It opened fire. Take cover. I shouted, diving behind the rusted frame of an APC as a railgun round punched a hole through what was left of control tower. Ramirez cursed. It's not aiming at us. I risked a glance. He was right. The drone wasn't firing at my squad. It was firing into the sky. Then I saw why. A shadow cut across the clouds. Sleek, angular, alien. One of their scouts. Somehow, even after their victory, they still circle like vultures, making sure humanity stayed buried. But now, their vulture had company. The ancient drone roared up into the air on thrusters that should have corroded years ago. Its railgun spun and fired, punching through the alien craft with a single shot. Fire lit up the clouds and the scout fell, trailing smoke. That thing's on our side, Ramirez said. For now, I muttered, but it doesn't know the war's over. It thinks we're still fighting, which means... A voice crackled through my helmet. Not Ramirez. Not anyone alive. Soldier. Confirm identity. I froze. The voice was human, but hollow. A synthetic overlay. I knew that voice. Major Collins? I whispered. He died in the first month of the war. Yet here he was, speaking through a drone's comm system. His consciousness. Copied. Uploaded into the machines before everything fell apart. Confirm identity, the voice repeated. This is Captain Jace Morgan. I said carefully, 5th Infantry, Earthborn. A pause. Static. Then, order received. Human survival priority 1. Initiating awake protocol. The ground rumbled again, louder this time, like an army marching up from the dirt. Across the base, hidden blast doors split open. More drones. More tanks. More ghosts. Ramirez swore under his breath. Jace, what the hell did you just wake up? I looked at the machines rising from their tombs. They didn't look abandoned. They looked angry. I said slowly, I just called in reinforcements. But something in my gut twisted. Reinforcements were good if they listened, if they didn't see us as just another variable to eliminate. The hum of reactors rose into a chorus as hundreds of dormant war machines powered on. Their targeting systems swept the horizon, not distinguishing between alien signals and human ones. For the first time since the war ended, I wasn't afraid of the enemy above. I was afraid of what we'd buried below. And they were no longer sleeping. They called it Project Lazarus, though no one dared say the name aloud. To the Council, we were assets. To the soldiers still breathing, we were ghosts they prayed never to meet. I woke inside a sterile chamber, the hum of machines around me like a heartbeat that wasn't mine. My skin burned where synthetic flesh fused with scar tissue. I caught a glimpse of myself in a glass. Pale, almost gray, with lines of circuitry running beneath the surface like rivers of cold light. I wasn't a man anymore. I wasn't even a soldier. I was a weapon forged out of death itself. Commander Vale briefed me as though I was just another drone. "You're being deployed to the Arcturus front," she said, not meeting my eyes. "Your team will consist of 12 Lazarus operatives. Your mission isn't to win. It's to make them afraid." Her words echoed in my skull. Not to win, just to terrify. Humanity had finally embraced what it once feared. We weren't fighting for survival anymore. We were fighting for vengeance. We dropped behind enemy lines, silent as shadows. The Zyther had dug themselves into fortified bunkers, thinking Earth had no one left to throw at them. They were wrong. The first sentry we encountered never got the chance to scream. Rourke slit his throat with a blade humming with kinetic charge. The second was pulped by my rail spike before he even saw me. But the real horror wasn't what we did to them. It was what they did to us. Midway through the raid, a plasma round tore through my chest, cooking my insides. I went down hard, gasping, watching steam rise from my own body. My team didn't even stop. They kept fighting while med drones swooped in, sealing my wounds, jump-starting my heart with enough voltage to fry a tank. Minutes later, I was on my feet again, still smoking, still bleeding, still killing. The Zyther didn't know what they were seeing. Soldiers who refused to stay dead. Men and women with vacant stares and cracked armor, moving through the dark like wraiths. Their disciplined lines broke. Their commanders screamed retreat. They left behind weapons, supplies, even their wounded. We'd become the nightmare they used to tell about us. But with every mission, I felt less human. Sleep didn't come anymore. My memories slipped, replaced by cold efficiency. I tried to remember my sister's laugh, my mother's voice, but all I could hear were Vale's orders. All I could see was the next target. After the third deployment, Rourke asked me if I remembered how he died. I didn't. He smiled bitterly. "Good," he said. "Means the program's working." Working. That was the word they loved to use. As if stripping us of everything that made us human was just another success metric. But late at night, if you can call it night when your nerves are wired to never truly sleep, I wonder if there was anything left of me at all. I wasn't sure which side I hated more, the aliens who killed us or the humans who dragged us back. The Zyther called us the dead who walk. They whispered it over comms, panicked and broken. Humanity was winning piece by piece, but it was building victory out of corpses. Out of me. The battle over Acheron Prime was supposed to be humanity's last stand. Instead, it became the enemy's grave. I remember the moment our guns fell silent, not because we'd run out of ammunition, but because there was simply nothing left to shoot at. Their ships, once an endless tide of fire and steel, now drifted in ruins, gutted by plasma and torn apart by the rage of species with nothing left to lose. But silence is never peace. It's just the ringing in your ears after the explosion. We won. Or at least that's what Command kept repeating in every transmission. The feeds showed cheering crews, flag officers saluting one another, and the banners of Earth Coalition flashing across every surviving console. But when I looked around the shattered bridge of the Nightingale, victory didn't look like triumph. It looked like smoke curling from consoles that would never light again. It looked like medics stepping over bodies they were too late to save. We'd spent everything to kill the enemy fleet. Fuel, weapons, blood, and now we had nothing left to spend. Admiral says the war is over, Sergeant Kane muttered as we floated through the wreckage, collecting any survivors he could find, human or otherwise. Funny how he forgot to mention we're stranded out here. He's not lying, I said, though I barely believed it myself. The last of the command ships went down 2 hours ago. They got nothing left to fight with. Kane spat into his rebreather. Neither do we. The truth was worse than either of us wanted to say aloud. Humanity hadn't just beaten the Zalthari. We'd nearly annihilated ourselves to do it. Every colony world was either glassed, abandoned, or starving. Earth itself had gone dark weeks ago. And now, out here on the frontier, we were clinging to the edge of survival like a man hanging from a cliff with bloody fingers. As we drifted toward a broken escape pod, its beacon still blinking faintly, I thought of the irony. We were the ones who died first. The Zalthari's first strike had butchered entire cities in hours, their shock troops carving through soldiers and civilians alike. Humanity had been written off as extinct before the war had even really begun. But we didn't stay dead. We never do. The escape pod's hatch finally gave way, and inside we found something unexpected. A Zalthari officer, barely alive, his carapace cracked and leaking fluorescent blood. He tried to reach for a sidearm that wasn't there, but his limbs were too weak to lift. Should I finish it? Kane asked, hand on his pistol. I stared at the alien for a long moment. This thing had probably overseen massacres, maybe even Earth itself. And yet, looking at him, I saw more than an enemy. I saw a mirror, a soldier dying for orders he didn't give. No, I said, patch him up. He's worth more alive. Kane swore under his breath, but obeyed. And in that instant, I realized the war wasn't truly over. Not yet. Killing fleets and burning planets was the easy part. What came next that would decide whether humanity deserved to survive? Because victory isn't free, and every debt comes due. The universe was burning, and I was the one holding the torch. Our fleets, if you could still call them that, were stretched across 3 sectors, hunting what remained of the XYR Dominion. These weren't battles anymore. They were exterminations. I'd stopped counting how many of their ships I'd personally destroyed. Every kill blurred into the next. Every scream over intercepted comms sounded the same. But the war wasn't over. Not yet. Not until I made it clear to every species watching from the shadows. Humanity wasn't just surviving. We were rewriting the rules. We'd hijacked an old galactic relay station. When the XYR used to broadcast their victories, it floated like a corpse in the void, cracked panels and shattered antennas glinting in a distant sun's light. My team secured it while I prepared to send a message across every inhabited system still listening. Sir, Captain Reyes said, stepping into the control room. Transmission array is stable. You're live on my mark. I nodded. My reflection in the cracked viewport barely looked human anymore. Months without real rest. Combat armor patched with scavenged parts. A face hardened by loss and vengeance. If the galaxy expected a speech about peace, they were about to be disappointed. Reyes counted down. 3, 2, 1. The light above the console turned red. We were live. This is Commander Elias Kane of the Terran Resistance. My voice was steady, but every word carried steel. To every species that watched humanity burn and did nothing, to every empire that thought Earth's fall meant our extinction, look again. I could imagine millions of beings in distant star systems pausing whatever they were doing, staring at their holoscreens, hearing a human voice they thought would never return. We died first. We won later. And we're not done winning. Reyes shot me a glance. This wasn't part of the script. Good. I wasn't reading one. The XYRR Dominion thought fear would keep you obedient, thought their war would crush us so completely we'd vanish from history. But humanity doesn't vanish. We evolve, we adapt, and we do not forgive. The relay's data stream fed real-time visuals behind me. XYRR fleets burning in orbit, Terran strike teams boarding their carriers, cities we liberated under human banners again. I leaned closer to the mic. If you're still helping them, stop. If you're hiding them, hand them over. And if you're thinking of taking their place, I let the silence hang for a beat. Don't. Somewhere deep in the station, the reactor thrummed louder as power surged to the transmission nodes. My words were bouncing off comm buoys, defense networks, and trading hubs across the galaxy. No one could ignore this. This is humanity's last broadcast. After this, we're not talking anymore. We're not negotiating. We're not asking. If you stand with us, we'll rebuild this galaxy together. If you stand against us, I straightened. You won't stand long. The transmission cut abruptly as the array overheated and shorted out. Good timing. It made the silence feel deliberate. Reyes exhaled slowly. That's going to scare a lot of people. That's the idea, I said. Now let's finish this. The final assault on the XYR homeworld was already underway. As our ships descended through their dying atmosphere, I could see their cities crumbling, not from our bombardments, but from within mutinies, panic, starvation. The Dominion had rotted long before we struck the killing blow. We landed at their central command spire. No resistance, just empty streets littered with bodies and abandoned weapons. In the throne chamber, the XYRR Premarch waited unarmed, trembling. You can't. It rasped through its mandibles, voice failing. You shouldn't exist. I raised my rifle. Get used to disappointment. The shot echoed through the hollow spire. And just like that, the war ended. But there was no celebration. No cheering crowds. Humanity had changed too much for that. We'd crawled out of extinction with claws and teeth, and everyone watching knew it. Later, as our fleet jumped to deep space, I recorded one last private log. Earth will rise again, but not the way it was. We're something new now, and the galaxy better learn what that means. I shut the recorder off, leaned back in my chair, and watched the stars blur past. For the first time in years, I almost smiled. The war was over, but humanity had just begun.